Good morning. I am pleased to welcome you to this video. If the lesson is useful to you, you can subscribe the channel for more teaching videos. An analysis of the novel, The Waiting Earth, written by Punyakante Wijenaike. Table of contents, abstract, introduction, findings and data analysis, conclusion, bibliography. Abstracts. The novel, The Waiting Earth by Punyakante Wijenaike, deals with a number of critical issues the people faced for their social mobility and existence in the post-independence era of Sri Lanka. Though each literature genre brings out the conflicts in macro and macro level, which prevails in the societies it portrays, the exact causes for those conflicts and vulnerabilities and turning its characters into victims, villains, or winners are not fully known. In many occasions, this problem remains unspoken. Thus, this paper aims to identify the true victims, villains, and winners who play a role for the conflicts and vulnerabilities in the fiction, while the investigation of its causes are meant as secondary objectives of the study. For that, selected lines from the novel, The Waiting Earth by Punyakante Wijenaike has been taken, and their contents were analyzed using descriptive and argumentative research methods. While farming and living, feudalistic setup, owning a land, love, social class and caste, belief of astrological prediction, marriage and its limitation, customs associated with the New Year festival, ideology of sexual intercourse, vulnerability, exaggeration of maturity, suspicion in the marriage life, authoritarianism, parallel between mother and daughter, beliefs in evil spirits, and realization of betrayal have been taken as independent variables. Victimization and conflicts have been taken as dependent variables in the study. The findings reveal that the majority of the independent variables have made the landless, innocent, and poor men and women as victims in the novel, whereas factors related to history, society, and individuality were the leading motives for all these miseries in the fiction. Therefore, this study recommends to conduct further studies in relation with other sub-motives in the society. Chapter 1, Introduction. Chapter 1 describes the background, objectives, selected literature review, and the methodology of this study. Background. According to Nishanda Harichandra, Punyakante Wijenaike deals with women's core issues such as love, marriage, and female sexuality, which resulted in sexual revolution during the period between 1960 and 1970. The researcher further states that through her literary works, she brings out all oppressions against women in Sri Lanka. The novel, The Waiting Earth, falls in the category of Sri Lankan fiction written in English during 1966. Bandaranaike L. in a research titled A Comparative Study on the Waiting Earths, written by Punyakante Wijenaike, and The Good Earths, says that Punyakante Wijenaike, who hails from Sri Lanka, was influenced by a Chinese novel, The Good Earths, which consequently made her to write the novel, The Waiting Earths, about the life of Sri Lankan farmers. Further, the researcher brings out a number of similarities in those both novels in the findings. According to the description found in Goodreads.com, the novel is about about the hardships of the people living in the dry zone of Sri Lanka, in which a young girl, Isabella Hami, falls into love with a school teacher, which brings a cultural shock to the folks. Problem statements. Every literature mirrors its own society portrayed in the text. As such, it brings out a number of conflicts the people in such societies face for their survival and existence. This battle, some become victims, while some others remain winners and villains. Finding the true victims, villains, and winners, the ideal causes for such conflicts and vulnerabilities, have been a challenging task throughout the history. Objectives. The primary objective of the study is to find out true victims, villains, and winners who create conflicts and vulnerabilities in the fiction, while the secondary objectives include a study on its causes in line with the theories of history and individuality. Literature review. According to N. Shanmugaratnam, kings owned all the land in the pre-colonial Sri Lanka. Later, the lands were granted to the members in certain classes and religious institutions based on their hierarchical relationships in the government, which brought about the private possession of land and led to landlordism, a new class in the society. Further, this article reveals that in this setup, small plots of lands were given to some peasants by some landlords for cultivation. In return, in addition to a portion of cultivation for the landlord's needs, peasants rented their services to the landlord, which ranged from the daily household works to any special functions that take place in their residences called Balava. Shanmugaratnam N says that the hosts Caste too played a role in this landlordism in Sri Lanka, while people from upper caste enjoyed these opportunities well than the people in the lower caste. The proximity to the government too had been an added advantage in this venture. Similarly, John Lawrence, in an article titled A History of Lands, Rent and the Feudal Origins of a Non-Working Class, says that the state lands were granted to the individuals who were in political, military, and religious positions at the beginning, which created landlords from various classes of the society in the world. Though feudalism was legally eliminated in Sri Lanka in 1833, its effects still continue to exist in our society, as it were, with many positive and negative aspects, says Herman Fernando in an article written for a book titled Sri Lankan Poetry. These historical factors lead for a group called landless in Sri Lanka for a period of time. These people, particularly the peasants or the households which came from farming tradition, had to depend on others as they did not have a permanent land for their cultivation. This uncertainty and the economic imbalance for their survival created many problems among families and in the society at large, especially men who takes charge as the heads in the families faced all these consequences when they become landless in the society. This life phenomenon turns such persons into victims in agricultural communities and countries like Sri Lanka. Also, it is evident that how the lands were granted as rewards for the services in politics, military, and religious arena results in many social changes in the preceding years in ancient histories. Atchuthan Y and Hamsat P in a research article titled Perceptions of Sri Lankan Buddhist about karma, with special reference to the short story Golden Oriole written by Bhikkhuni Suvimali Karunaratne, explores how Buddhists in Sri Lanka believe in astrological predictions and therefore how it has become as an integrated part in their life. Further, the researchers Atchuthan and Hamsathani mentioned that astrological prediction plays a vital role in Buddhist lives. As a result, the horoscope reading has become an essential task in arranging marriages and during life difficulties, since through this reading, the fortune teller could predict any bad as well as good omens in one's life. They have found out this life phenomenon in Sri Lanka in a research titled Sociological Functions of Buddhism in the Scenario of Sri Lankan Civil War, with special reference to the poem A Soldier's Wife Weeps, written by Kamala Vijayaratna. As reading one's horoscope has been a habit and a practice from ancient time, when a literature piece reflects its own society, it is not a wonder that this belief too comes in a text in a prominent place. Since the writers too come from such same community, the concept is often transmitted as an autobiographical element in the genres. Rizwan M., in his research titled A Historical Survey of Social Class and Caste System in Sri Lanka, states that social stratification, which is a natural consequence in a society, is used to rank and categorize the people in a hierarchy. Accordingly, in Sri Lanka, there are 4 elements which determine this social stratification. They are caste, class, gender, and ethnicity. As far as this theory has been concerned, the novel The Waiting Earth, written by Punyakante Wijenaike, deals with 3 of these elements. They are caste, class, and gender, which determine the social stratification for the members in the country. While the land stands for the symbol of wealth in the class arrangements, education, money, husband's occupation, inherited property determine the hierarchy for the same gender, especially among women in the fiction. Further, Rizwan M. emphasizes 2 factors such as individual achievements and social mobility as the factors which have been the foundation in which the class divisions are erupted. While he identifies another 2 elements such as division of labor and power, which were the causes for the formation of caste in the society. When the above theory is applied to the contents of the novel, it is evident that how Podisingho gives efforts in the novel for his individual achievements to own a land for his own and the concern to educate his children, especially his 2 sons, reveal the social mobility he wanted to achieve in the society to climb up in the social ladder to an upper class in the society. This one further mentions that certain aspects such as socio-economics, politics, and history in terms of colonial era contributed for the class system among Muslims, Tamils, and Sinhalese, while features such as socio-economics, culture, religions, and rituals have host various caste stratification among the Tamils and Sinhalese in the social landscape of Sri Lanka. Carla Resu, another researcher, mentions the roles of women in the country in the past. The colonial rule impacted on kinship structures, including gender arrangements in the society. Mainly, wives took the reproductive role for their husbands in the society, though other new opportunities arose due to colonialism and the emergence of new ideology towards gender participation in decision-making from family level to community level. In line with the above historical aspect, when the novel The Waiting Earth by Punyakante Wijenaike is analyzed, the expectation of Podisingho from his wife Salahami regarding childbirth correlates with the role which meant for reproduction by the husbands in the history of the country. Numerous researchers have conducted on premarital sex. Their findings show that in highly respected culture, female virginity affects the approach of women and men. Also, the results indicate a higher rate of premarital sex in men than women. While physical pleasure, curiosity, and the desire for experience were seen as primary motives in boys, love has been identified as the leading motive for girls for their first sexual intercourse before marriage. The incidents in the fiction, The Waiting Earth, correlates with the findings of the research. For example, as far as Isabella Harmy is concerned, she goes into her first sexual intercourse with the teacher because of her love towards the teacher. Here, the love has been the leading motive for her premarital sex with the teacher. However, when we consider the motives of the teacher, it is believed that he wants to have his sexual intercourse with the girl Isabella Harmy beyond her legal wife for gaining physical pleasure and desire for an experience. Further, according to David, in his research titled Virginity and Premarital Intimacy, mentions that the phenomenon of premarital sex brings ill reputation, shame, anxiety, and extreme fear in many societies. This too correlates with the themes of the fiction. It is evident when the mother Stella Harmy expresses her constant fear towards Isabella Harmy's too much attachment with the teacher. The perceptions of the fear for the premarital sex has been brought out by the character Stella Harmy. On the other hand, when the lovers Isabella Harmy and the teacher were about to have sexual intercourse, the girl Isabella Harmy herself was frightened and still, which shows the fear for the girl thinking about its consequences in the culture where she is living. When Isabella Harmy mentions about their marriage during her physical intimacy with the teacher, he stops his action for a while and thoughts. Then he expressed his passiveness, which foreshadowed for his escape from his responsibilities lightly with a harsh tone. This too shows his fear about the results of his sexual intercourse with the girl. On another occasion, after reading the letter written by the teacher for Isabella Harmy, Podesingo says that he would drown his daughter into water in anger if she carries baby. Here, the father suspects his daughter with the teacher in sexual intercourse. He thinks that it will bring shame to her and his family. His fear, anxiety, and shame that he is not prepared to face have been mentioned as the factors associated with premarital sex in Sri Lankan communities. The death of Isabella Harmy too is associated with ill reputation, fear, anxiety, and shame in the way she responded to her lover's cavalarias. Some other researchers indicate about the communicative diseases which mainly result from premarital sex. Therefore, it is highly believed that premarital sex was not entertained even in traditional societies in Sri Lanka due to its harmful consequences. Also, the above researchers indicate the importance of purity, which was expected within the framework of marriage, is an informal ban for the premarital sex in some communities in the world. When the novel has been closely analyzed, the importance of purity has been emphasized in many places of the novel from the characters. It is evident that a father has to give more dowry to a man if he is to give his unchaste daughter in marriage, because being as an unchaste woman before marriage was looked down by the members in the society. No man casually welcomed any unchaste woman to his bed within the framework of marriage. This shows the need for a girl to remain as a virgin till marriage in the society. Thus, this fiction shows how purity is expected from the girls at marriage, which in return establish an informal banning of premarital sex in the society. However, later researchers revealed that feminist point of view towards the concept of premarital sex, in that many females perceive this expectation in the society as a tool to encourage inequality between men and women, while some say as myth and a way for exploitation by men. This has become a new trend for resistance in the world now. Further, these research findings indicate the rejection of the concept purity is due to the economic role given to women in industrialized world. Methodology. Selected lines from the novel The Waiting Earth, written by Punyakante Wijenaike, were taken, and the lines were analyzed using descriptive and argumentative research methods to arrive at the research findings. Similarly, certain selected secondary materials were used to have a comparative study on certain incidents in the novel. This study treats farming and living, feudalistic setup, owning a land, love, social class, and caste, belief, astrological prediction, marriage and its limitation, customs associated with the New Year festival, ideology of sexual intercourse, vulnerability of women, exaggeration of maturity, suspicion in marriage life, authoritarianism, parallel between mother and daughter, beliefs in evil spirits, and realization of betrayal as an independent variables, while the life phenomenon of victimization is treated as a dependent variable in the proceedings chapters. Chapter 2, Findings and Data Analysis. This chapter indicates the findings and data analysis of this study. It will describe the topics such as farming and living, feudalistic society, importance of owning a land, ideology of love, social class and caste, belief of astrological prediction, marriage and its limitation, customs associated with the New Year festival, ideology of sexual intercourse, vulnerability of women, exaggeration of maturity, suspicion in marriage life, authoritarianism, parallel between mother and daughter, beliefs in evil spirits, and realization of betrayal in detail. Farming and living. The novel The Waiting Earth by Punyakante Wijenaike portrays a traditional lifestyle of Sri Lankans who make their living by farming. Especially, the characters in the novel either own or work in the paddy fields to run their lives. The prominent characters Podusingo and Selahami work in the paddy fields, which belong to another man in the village every year. Moreover, harvesting season has been a ceremonious occasion in their village, as the villagers fill their bins with the paddy soon after the harvesting. Feudalistic society. The novel indicates a feudalistic society. Many villagers worked in someone's paddy field for farming. For their labor in the paddy fields, they were given paddy as a reward. However, it was not enough for the time. The worries of the workers have been emphasized since they could not fill the bins with their paddy due to the insufficiency of the allocated measure. For many, the bins remain half empty, while the landowner, though he does not visit the land, receives a major portion of the harvest from the village. It shows how the landers were exploited for their labor. Filling the bins with paddy has been a dream for many households. This made many houses to be dependent on the kindness of landlords and their wives, which bring the image of feudalism practiced in Sri Lanka in the past before 1833. The pity of the poor villagers in the system is well explained in the Sri Lankan poem From the Lake of the Folk Poet Sino, written by Lakdasa Vikramasinghe. While the landlords enjoy all the benefits, it is the peasant who sow and sweats in the lands, irrespective of any weather condition, starved in poverty. Through this, the unfair treatment and the injustice of the system followed in the matter of land are visible. The divided gain had been sent to landlord, and now he could rest like a good earth, both in mind and body. He thought of the empty fields lying like a woman, weary after the battle of giving birth. The simile like a good earth in the above line refers to the comforts that the landlord enjoys due to the good harvest. However, the second simile like a woman weary after the battle of giving birth reveals how peasants who really worked hard for the good harvest are left helplessly. It further pictures how the landless were exploited for their labor. The harvest belongs to the one who sowed it and watched it over it like a mother keeping warm the unborn child in her belly. The utterance of a farmer above shows how the landless were vulnerable in this agrarian society. The simile, like a mother keeping warm the unborn child in her belly, indicates how the farmers take care in the crops they grow in the land. On the other hand, the fertile land has been compared to a pregnant mother, a woman, who is in the capacity of bearing a child in her womb. Importance of owning a land. The anxiety of the man to own the land has been depicted through the character Podisingho. It is evident when we look at his family and how it was destroyed at the end due to his anxiety for owning a land in his name, either to be cultivated or later to be transferred to his sons yet to be. It is similar to the worries of the character Okanhuo in the African novel Things Fall Apart regarding owning a land. Further, owning a land has been looked as a prestigious title in the society. For a man, it was something to be proud of. When a man does not own a land, he was always looked down by others in the society. It is evident when Podisingho was humiliated by others in the novel at various stages. For example, Rapilapu runs all his destructive deeds on Podisingho and his family members due to an expectation for a land that Podisingho himself possessed. Podisingho was psychologically down, though he had a praiseworthy wife in terms of many positive qualities. It further shows him as an incapable human being in this novel. Ideology of love. The writer in this novel brings out various aspects of the concept love. Firstly, the love between Podisingho and Sellahami is seen with many ups and downs due to a number of external factors. It is evident that how the love unites these two hearts in times of extreme suffering and anxiety. For example, their union after the death of their first son clearly pictures it. Even on their wedding night, he had not felt this way with her. This line from the book shows how their intimacy cured the broken hearts. Further, this line brings the love image between husband and wife at the beginning of their marriage life, which is similar to the poem The Fisherman Born by His Wife by the Sri Lankan author Patrick Fernando. This moment then was their true marriage. The above line further illustrates how the couples in arranged marriage fall in love to each other over the time, which has been an ideal phenomenon almost in all the communities in Sri Lanka. This too shows us that how the worries unites the couples irrespective of their time of bitterness and failures. On the other hand, the writer pictures some love scenes between Isabella Hami and the school teacher. Though it is a natural response of a girl who is reaching adolescence in her life, the teacher's responses are seen as abusive since he has been a married man. As such, the girl loves the teacher with a fresh heart. It is evidence that the teacher has used the girl only to satisfy his sexual desires during his stay in loneliness in the village. The romantic relationship between Isabella Hami and the teacher was always mingled with lust and abusive attitudes. He thought of her little breast just beginning to sprout like lotus buds beneath her frocks. Let him remain seated stupidly in the class. In the above line, the first subject pronoun he indicates the teacher who recalls the beauty of Isabella Hami in his mind when he punishes her biological brother Ubasena in the class for his carelessness in his studies. However, as a teacher, he changes his thoughts not to punish the boy anymore in the future in order to take her as a prey for his sexual desire. Therefore, the teacher decides to let the boy remain idle in the class, which shows his carelessness over his duties and responsibilities as a teacher. He knew this was the chance he had been waiting for. The subject pronoun he indicates the teacher who had been waiting for a chance to give himself to Isabella Harmony. When she deserted all of her friends due to their insults and gossips about her mother's conduct, the illegal relationship with the Mudalali, the teacher plans to make him available for Isabella Harmony in order to experience her intimacy. The characters who have love affair in the novel has a dual relationship. They play as a lovers in personal, while their relationship remains as a teacher and a student in public. However, the intention of the teacher to leave Isabella Harmony shows how she was exploited sexually in the name of love. As such, a complicated love has been presented in the novel, which intensifies the artistic value of the novel. Selahami reached him first. It was she who saved him from death by putting her full weight on him. The above line shows an everlasting ideal love of a wife towards her husband amidst all her experiences of negligence and humiliations. This is a permanent love irrespective of physical urges that a woman possesses towards her husband. Selahami has proved that she is capable enough to show that love to her husband beyond all his failures and foolishness. Her love has not been corrupted in all of these ups and downs in their lifespan. Because of her power, he has been saved. A life the man decided to destroy was restored by this woman. What else Selahami can give to him as a reward? Thus, a love which can be contrasted to the teacher's love towards Isabella Harmony was well pictured in all hearts. Social class and caste. The novel explores the theme of social class as well. It is evident when Selahami is not treated equally as other women characters in the story, like Hadrina Harmony and Karo Harmony. It is due to the imbalance in the economic status of these women in the novel. Though the ideology of support and the unity among the individuals from the same caste has been emphasized, it is not treated in length as the social class played a role in the society. Throughout the novel, the readers can see the efforts of Podhisingo to climb up in the social ladder by owning a land in his name. He becomes mad in achieving his only aim in his life. For this, what he loses too were not measurable. His agony for the land remains till the end of the novel. His sons were but 2 years old, but he was anxious to begin their learning. All that he had missed, he must give his sons. They would be learned men and landlords. The line above illustrates the expectation of a father towards his own son's future, which on one hand shows his efforts in climbing the social ladder. On the other hand, the line emphasizes the importance of schooling to gain this social status. Podhisingo believes that sending them to school will obviously change his sons as gentlemen. This ideology is similar to what the character Pip possesses in the novel Great Expectation, written by Charles Dickens. Thus, in both societies, learning played a role for a person to climb up in the social ladder. Selahami wiped carefully the 2 small slates her sons to carry to school. She wiped them as carefully and reverently as she would have wiped an altar before the Buddha. The line shows the great importance given to education with the intention of raising their children as gentlemen. The word reverently refers to the dedication, devotion, and the commitment of the parents towards their child's learning. It has been compared to a devotional act one could do in front of the statue of Buddha, the god in Buddhism. Belief of astrological prediction. We should get the horoscope of these 2 as soon as possible. Then we can guard against bad periods in their lives. It is evidence that the novel explores the theme of astrological prediction as a belief among the people in the Buddhist society. The above line spoken by Selahami shows how the horoscope reading is important in their life. It further reveals the perceptions of the people in astrological predictions and bad omens in life. Accordingly, the characters strongly believe that any bad omens can be either overtaken or minimized in its effects with certain remedial deeds if someone comes to know in advance. As horoscope reading brings a lot of information about their life at present and ahead, people tend to know its ways of moving. Marriage and its limitations. Monogamy marriage is found as a practice in the novel. For a woman, dowry plays a vital part for selecting a partner for her life. Men usually choose the one with more dowry. For example, the Mudalali did not marry Selahami, though she is more beautiful than the other women in the novel. Instead, he marries Harohami, which emphasizes the power of money over the pleasant personality in the institution of marriage. Due to such and many other reasons, for many men, raising daughters was seen as a burden. And once their wives give birth to baby girls, it was often looked at with a disappointment. Sons were more preferred than the daughters in the community. For example, Podisingo preferred for a baby boy. However, when his wife gives birth for a baby daughter, he is disappointed over the births and intends to blame his wife for the failure of her acts. He took one brief look at their child and then went out, his heart twisting in disappointments. The line above shows the reaction of her father, Podisingo, over the birth of his baby daughter. A woman who truly cared for her man would bear him nothing but sons. This line shows how he blames his wife over the incidents. Thus, the vulnerability of women in the institution of marriage has been brought out. Though giving birth to sons and daughters is determined by various factors and the man too shares the responsibility in this act, when there is a failure, the girl is often blamed for, which brings out the male chauvinism on the other hand. This is similar to what happens to the female character Labia in the Nigerian short story, The Divorcee, by Kensaro Weaver. It is evidence that Labia is blamed for the failure of giving birth to any child by her husband. Though the blames are baseless, the women become victims in both societies. Value of being chaste until the marriage has been emphasized. Women were expected to protect their virginity before the marriage, as ruined chastity was looked down as a shame upon the whole family. The line below explains this ideology in the society well. There are those who will take your friendliness or one thing only, and the ruined chastity will bring nothing but shame upon our family. When the neighboring woman Hadrana Hami visits Isabella Hami, she speaks to the girl as follows. Your father is a poor man. He will not be able to bribe a man with a large dowry to marry a girl who is not a virgin. This shows how difficult for an unchaste woman to find a partner for marriage in the society. Under the institution of marriage, the pregnancy was always praised as it symbolized good luck and fertility. For this reason, once the girl comes out of her house after attaining age, she was expected to meet a pregnant woman on her first sight. This woman was there as a sign of good luck and fertility. It is evident when Isabella Hami was welcomed by a pregnant woman at the door. No good marriage would ever come for a couple who had played too loosely with each other, who had too strong attachment before marriage. The above line from the novel reveals the perception of villages regarding a relationship between a man and a woman before marriage in Sri Lanka in the past. The line further explains how this particular society regards a sexual intercourse before marriage. These two emphasize the importance of virginity for a woman in the institution of marriage. Protecting virginity before marriage has been the norm for all women in the society. The marriage was an arrangement between two families with the two fathers in the final decision. This line stands to show the ideal arranged marriage, which was encouraged it to happen in the presence of fathers as the final decision makers in the society. On one hand, it again shows the male dominance in the society. On the other hand, it shows how the couples were given less importance in decision making on the matters of their marriages. In norms, the girl did not have any roles to play in such decision making. You are too young to speak of marriage. You must leave such talks to your parents. The line above spoken by the teacher to Isabella Harmon during a physical intimacy generates many doubts about his true intention of this involvement with the girl. On one hand, it foreshadows his escape from legal commitments for his attachment with the girl. On the other hand, his fear to speak about marriage shows how strong the wedlock in the community. As his involvement with the girl does not mean any strong bond for the man, he wishes to neglect that even in talks. I will marry the man I want to. My father and my mother will not choose for me. The above line spoken by Isabella Harmon to the teacher indicates her stance in selecting her own life partner, which on one hand shows her resistance over her parents' too much influence in her life. On the other hand, from feminist point of views, it shows the freedom that the girl yearned for from her own parents for her existence in the society. Customs associated with the New Year. The writer explores the customs of Sri Lankan associated with the New Year festival too in this novel. Yellow is the lucky color for this New Year. The above line spoken by a vendor during a New Year shopping emphasizes their perceptions of luck in their life. They believe that the New Year brings luck for the people when they wear clothes in certain color, as it has been prescribed in their religious norms. Here, the activities associated with the Sinhala and Tamil New Year have been pictured, which shows the importance of this festival in Sri Lankan Buddhist perceptions. During the day, Rapalapu and Kadarina Hami came to the hut as good neighbors. The above line depicts the customs of visiting the neighbors' houses on the festival day. In the sociological point of view, such practices enhance the well-being of individuals and the society at large in numerous ways, as this kind of customs promoted mutual understanding and love among the individuals. It was a natural healing process too for a man from the view of psychologists. From afar came the sound of the Rabana playing and the exploding of the firecrackers for the New Year. What the line above describes are the typical activities associated with the New Year festivals in Sri Lanka. The ideology of jealousy towards others has been portrayed in many places of this novel. It is evident when Podisingho and Selahami fear for the women around them over their children. If they said she was fair and plump, I would be worried that their enemy might harm them. According to Selahami, the jealousy of such people may harm the well-being of her daughter. This fear does not allow them to praise their own children in public. This perception lingers in the heart of Podisingho too. Ideology of sexual intercourse. The ideology of sexual intercourse has been explored in many places of this novel. On one hand, the writer explores the physical intimacy between Podisingho and Selahami, which does not give any rooms for tenderness. It is only meant for satisfying the sexual organs. Her father would paint in the darkness, while her mother would mourn, and then it would be over as quickly as it began. The ugliness of sexual intercourse which Isabella Harmon witnessed during her parents' mating has been brought out through the above line. According to her, their physical intimacy lacked in many other aspects, but any other couple should concern for their true happiness. On the other hand, the writer presents the sexual intercourse between the teacher and Isabella Harmon, which mingled with the tender words soothing for the broken hearts. According to Isabella Harmon, the mating time meant for her heart and the body, unlike her parents. In her norms, it is the moment for true happiness for a girl. The below line stands to show the perceptions of physical intimacy with a man well. This was what she wanted today, not the mere mating of their two bodies. Soft words and kisses in forbidden places. During physical intimacy, the praise of the man towards the girl's forbidden parts is entertained in this novel. This gives more confidence to the girl Isabella Harmy regarding their romantic involvements. She slipped the frock off. She knew no fear or shame. The line above shows that Isabella Harmy had no hesitation to give herself to the teacher, though his background is not known to her capacity. To that extent, she loved him and believed that her intimacy with the teacher will lead to marriage one day in which she will bear more children for the man. He took off his own clothes and stood naked before her. All the responses of the teacher in appreciation of Isabella's beauty were to tend for sexual intercourse with the girl, which the teacher had already aimed to gain in his loneliness and alienation. They would never know the beauty of the moment between a man and a woman. Her mother would never know the joy of sharing a man's thoughts as well as his body. The line above shows how Isabella Harmy recalls the ways that her parents went into sexual intercourse and left each other. After she enjoyed a physical intimacy and intercourse with the teacher, she feels the beauty of that moment which she could not never see in her parents. Isabella Harmy worries for her mother, thinking her vulnerability and stupidity of their involvements. To her, they mate like animals, not like humans, who has the capacity to experience all my minute pleasures. Authoritarianism. The novel shows the qualities of totalitarianism through the characters in the novel. If I speak of such things, one day I will find my throat slit open. Perhaps it is better for my little ones to remain ignorant than go against those who hold the power of gods over this village. The above line is spoken by a peasant regarding his extreme fear and worries to mention the names of the people who are against opening a school in the village. This novel brings the character Rabelapu in shadow with the qualities of a dictator. Though he showcases himself as a well-wisher of the village in public, his deeds in secret and the gossips about him does not help to hide these qualities from him for the readers. Even the headman is afraid to let him teach. The line above further stimulates Rabelapu's superior power in the governing setup too. Though he has not been directly mentioned as a person opposing the commencement of a school in the novel, his name automatically comes in the reader's mind in a second. Though the readers are aware of his nature, it is pity that Podisingho did not understand his true picture. Podisingho was blind in the matters of Rabelapu, which resulted in losing her own daughter and one son in the end. The way Rabelapu went in sexual intercourse with Isabella Harmy, the daughter of Podisingho, shocks the readers. It's another example to show his cunningness in handling the matters like this. Vulnerability of women. This novel shows the vulnerability of women and how they easily fall as prey for the destructive forces in the society. In many ways, the novel portrays a patriarchal society. Women are not even going against their husbands, except their mild arguments on household matters. However, the men go to extreme level to discriminate the women psychologically. In many cases, the women were used as sexual objects by their husbands. On the top of all, when Rabelapu raped Isabella Harmy, the girl was helpless physically as well as socially. She could not find any supportive forces to guard her vulnerability, which led her to be the victim for others' cause. At the beginning, the parents did not give more importance to their daughters' education. For them, the expectation of daughters were limited to bearing children, running their households, or helping their husbands in the paddy fields after their marriage. The line below indicates the unwillingness of the parents to send Isabella Harmy to school. In this way, the women were marginalized with the burden of household works, unlike the men in the society, even though the girl was not going as a pupil of the school. However, the novel explores the resistance against this phenomenon in many ways, and the progress of the story shows how they become these barriers how they overcome these barriers and become a member of a professional community from an agrarian-oriented society. This too another example of how the social change took place in Sri Lanka with the divisions of agrarian society, professional society, and business class. Isabella Hami was always the first to go to school. She did not even wait for her brothers. The line above indicates the eagerness of the girl in schooling and education, which, with many other factors, promoted females' education in the country in the historical point of view. The vulnerability of Isabella Hami can be compared to the female character written in the Indian short story, The Postmaster, written by Dahul. Consequently, two of them become the victims to the insensitive nature of men folks in the short story, which emphasized the role the women were forced to play in both societies with patriarchal mindset. By entering womanhood too, the girls in the society become vulnerable. It could be easily identified when the acts and the thoughts of a mother are read upon Isabella Hami attaining puberty. No longer must she be allowed to sleep carelessly, immodestly, like a child. Even in sleep, she must remember she was now a woman. The above line shows what role a woman takes in fulfilling her responsibilities as a mother. Upon attaining age, the writer explores how the girls face new experiences in their life. The changes occur in their body make the girls vulnerable among their friends and in the society at large. The girls in many occasions undergo psychological depressants. The line below explains the conditions well. Because of the change in her body, each day became a burden, a battle to be faced and fought for Isabella Hami. Though Isabella Hami was brave and smart, she is seen as vulnerable and feared during her physical intimacy with the teacher when she thinks about bearing a child in her womb before a legal social assurance and approval. When the teacher asks her for a sexual intercourse, the frightening thoughts suddenly mushroomed in her mind, which disturbed their intimacy for a while. Will you permit me to bring you to your flowering? When the teacher requested Isabella Hami as above, the following was seen as her response for his request. She nodded shyly, her head cast down. She was frightened too. Are you content to lie there and let him have his way only when he wants it? Do you want to be nothing more than a possession to him? Are you nothing in yourself? These questions are raised by Isabella Hami in her heart towards her mother after witnessing her mother's weakness in allowing for the singer to have sexual intercourse without any intimacy at their hearts. Though Isabella Hami regrets for their machine-like relationship, her critical thoughts and heated questions emphasize her resistance and hatred over the matters. However, for Stella Hami, it is beyond her control, which reveals her vulnerability in her bed either. Things were changed since you were young. The line above spoken by Isabella Hami to Stella Hami shows the vulnerability of mothers, women in general, in socializing their children. It is evident how the social change and the improvement in education had put the illiterate women in trouble. It further reveals the challenges that the indigenous people faced in the face of a new transformation that took place in the society over the time. Moreover, Stella Hami is vulnerable as Isabella Hami does not show any intimacy with her mother, even in tasks like searching eyes like other girls in the village. The beauty lies in her life as she stands strong facing all these betrayals from her dear ones. Words were her only weapon against him. The line above shows the hopelessness of Isabella Hami in the struggle she made to escape from the devil power of Rapilapo. Only the words helped her to show her resistance over the incidents. But did he not tell you that I carry his child within me? Once Isabella Hami comes to know that the departure of the teacher, her lover, her life in secrets, the above line has been spoken by her to Rapilapo, helplessly in searching his mercy for a help. The line further indicates that he was not only her life, the life of the child within her as well. As a response for her begging for her help, Isabella Hami is sexually abused by the old devil, Rapilapo, which makes the girl more vulnerable and speechless. The below line stands to show how her body was abused by the old man. He thrust the letter into her hands and then began to feel the flesh of her young arm with his thin, bony fingers. Isabella Hami was shocked and tensed in the way Rapilapo approached her to satisfy his hunger, the long-waited hunger for his flesh, his bony organs. She was helpless to avoid it, though she did not want to go into a sexual intercourse either in a way similar to how her parents go or with another man in her life. The escaped teacher. I cannot come back as I am already burdened with wife and child. Your father's help you must seek in your trouble. The line written by the teacher and the lover of Isabella Hami in the letter put all in a helpless stage. On one hand, Selahami could not understand the exact meaning of some sentences in the letter. On the other hand, the information in the letter makes Isabella Hami as one of the victims in the story, as she served as a mistress for the teacher and paid off with her body for the extra lessons he conducted for free of charge. What was foreshadowed at the beginning became true as he left the girl helplessly after using her flesh for his needs in his isolation. It is any burden like that she is carrying, then it would be better to drown her in the river. The above line spoken by Podisingo shows the vulnerability of a woman's family who is expecting an illegal child before marriage. The perceptions of the father towards this occurrence has been emphasized with his great fear and wide anger even towards her daughter. The line further reveals that even a father starts to hate and intend to kill his loving daughter if she comes with such shames to their family. Thus, when a girl becomes unchaste before marriage, it was seriously taken with a shame and failure. Exaggeration of maturity. It is doubted that in many places, the novel explores the maturity of the children. Questions arise how this level of maturity is possible at this age. Rapilapo knows more than you about such things and I respect him. This utterance spoken by Bodhisingo's second son, Pasena, against his father creates confusing thoughts in the reader's minds. Though the boy speaks in anger and pain, the way he addressed arrogancy without an obedience shows his fearless nature and his over-maturity according to his age. On another occasion, when Ubasena and Isabella Hami speak to each other, they criticize their father's deeds as follows. I do not agree with my father. I am angry every time he beats you. When you scream, I want to hit back at him, even though he is my father. Here, the diction used at Isabella Hami's utterance seems to be too matured to a girl at this age. Also, it does not fall in the matter how girls love their father in general, according to the psychologist. Though it has been strange to see that the children betray their own biological father, it adds strength in the development of conflict in the novel as the writers create antagonists for the plot. Similarly, his daughter Isabella Hami too criticized the ways that her parents involved in sexual intercourse. You think there is nothing between a man and a woman except this thing? You think of a man and a woman like two beads who must meet when it is time only for that? The above line spoken by Isabella Hami to Sella Hami reveals how the girl is frustrated over the mother's questions over her attachment with the teacher on one hand. On the other hand, it shows her maturity and anxiety that she had hidden in her deep heart over the manners that her parents go into sexual intercourse at nights. Further, her above utterance correlates with the theme of uncivilized culture or barbarism as a tone of sarcasm is revealed towards their behaviors. Suspicion in marriage life. Podisingo suspects his wife with a Mudalali who had a desire at Selahami at first and neglected her later for Harohami due to no dowry Selahami could carry from her home. but the doubt in his mind was still heavy.